Tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
I'd like to introduce the members tonight. Drew is gone, so I believe we will have Valerie be a voting member tonight. And if we could start with introductions to my right.
Nick Campion.
Trevor Matera.
Kyle Welch.
Connor Madison.
Valerie Fanger.
Keith Whitehouse.
Kristen Murphy, Conservation Sustainability Planner.
Bill Campbell, Alden.
Michelle Crable, Alton.
Dan Chartrand, Select Board Rep.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? All right, let's move right into the continued discussion of the wetland and shoreline conditional use permit application from Foss Motors for a proposed vehicle storage area and accessory storage building at tax map 52, lot 112.2. By, I guess, Christian Smith from Beals Associates will lead it off.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, my name is Christian Smith with Beals Associates. Along with us in the audience tonight are Brendan Quigley from Gove Environmental and Tim Foss, owner of Meniscus Financial Holdings and owner of the property in question. So we met with the planning board after we saw you folks last and went through the iteration of doing a revision which pulls basically all disturbance, all impervious and the pervious pavement out of the 150-foot shoreline setback zone. The building has been reduced. We've provided a slightly increased buffer to Portsmouth Avenue as well, thereby reducing all of the proposed impacts within this project, and specifically the resource areas, that being the shoreline setback and the wetland buffers, et cetera. One thing that we did do in talking with Tim and his architects, we were able to shallow up the building by about 10 feet, which got that area, and if I'm going to point it, I don't have my laser pointer out, but in the area where the grading prior went almost down to the edge of this little wetland pocket, we have pulled that back. We actually provide a small retaining wall there, and we're able to retain natural vegetation in over 50% of that particular wetland buffer. And I'll remind the board that both of these are uphill in direction. So the only area that actually runs or stormwater that would flow in the direction of the Waterworks Pond Road is literally this section of the building here. Everything else flows back, gets into the infiltration trench that we propose for stormwater collection and treatment, as well as the entire roof area. And again, I guess I would follow up with, we met with our revised design in more than a conceptual form, but not in complete form at the point, with both Dave Sharples, the town planner, and Kristen Murphy. They encouraged us to contact Underwood engineers to go through our issues, or excuse me, their cited issues and our responses prior to actually formally responding to them, which we did. And I think there is an email correspondence between one of Underwood's engineers and Kristen. They concurred with our assessments on the stormwater treatment facilities, and we have now submitted them a formal response. I haven't heard from them. Kristen, I don't know if you've gotten anything formal back from Underwood at this point.
Nothing formal. I did include in the commission's packet email correspondence from Allison. You all saw that. I can't find it quickly to read it, but basically, here. So her comment was, the underdrains won't have any effect on, let me back up, because she sent two. The first was, she mentioned that you had a Teams call including you, Tim Foss, John Lorden, this morning. You presented the site plan. We were pleased to see the building parking lot footprints with less impact to the wetlands and buffer. We discussed some technical issues with the porous pavement, coming to a consensus that with the smaller footprint, Underwood Engineers is less concerned their proposal using underdrains, less concerned with their proposal using underdrains in the system. Operation and maintenance of the porous pavement was also discussed. Tim Fox said they use Piscataqua landscaping and that the company does have has a vac truck, so they'll be adding vacuuming of the pavement twice a year to their contract with them. Robert asked about landscaping and plantings in the parking lot, islands around the pavement, and he's concerned about mulch runoff from plugging up the porous pavement. The areas will be grassed, which eliminates that concern about mulch spreading into the porous pavement and shoot. Yeah, I just now have to log back in, sorry. It's gonna be one of those nights, I'm afraid. And then I had replied back, does the project as designed, does this mean the under drains meet our removal efficiency requirements for nitrogen? And she said the under drains won't have any effect on pollutant reduction. The under drains are in the bottom reservoir course. The removal occurs in the layer above that, the filter course. And then she cited what the removal efficiencies are based on Stormwater Center, and that's 96% TSS, total suspended solids, 75% phosphorus, and 77% nitrogen. Per that table, they do meet nitrogen removal requirements if they keep the maintenance up on it. And as Tim Foss said during the Teams meeting, they have a landscaping company vacuum it twice a year. It should be good to go. So that was provided in the
Yep.
commission's packet.
Yep, I read that as well, yeah, and again, we haven't seen a formal response from Underwood or a formal review to our final response to them. But we think we're there. It appears that they concur with what we were discussing with you folks, specific to the treatment that takes place within the porous pavement. And really, that's the long and short of it. Everything has been compacted down. The parking area has been shifted just slightly towards the GTE road as well. And with that, we're happy to address any comments or questions the board has. Commission, excuse me.
You mentioned the 150-foot, but aren't we looking at the 300-foot?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But yeah.
When you talked, you were talking about the 150.
Yeah, we have pulled all impervious and all of the porous pavement outside of that buffer.
But because it's waterworks, we're really looking at a 300-foot perimeter.
The 300-foot is there, yes, and that's
Okay.
all detailed in our
Okay.
plans.
Because the buildings and the parking lot are still inside that perimeter.
Within the 300-foot?
Yeah.
The entire property
Yeah.
virtually is within that perimeter, yes.
I did receive a letter from a member who was not able to be here tonight, and I guess I'd like to read it into the record. It's from Drew Koff, and he states, while the revised design does slightly reduce the impacts associated with this project, it is only minimally and not enough for me to change my opinion about the overall negative potential impact of this project on some of Exeter's most important water resources. Specifically, the building footprint was reduced 10% from 22,000 to 20,000 square feet. There are still impacts to the wetland buffer in the forested hillside that drains to the town's drinking water reservoir near the intake of the surface water treatment plant. This design will still negatively impact the reservoir's watershed, and due to that, I am not supportive of the issuance of a shoreline conditional use permit for this development. This begs the question, what design for this project would be acceptable? I've spent some time thinking about this, and I would be willing to move forward with the parking lot if the auto parts storage building was removed from the design completely. The building is creating the most disturbance to the site, and that land should be protected due to its sensitivity and proximity to the reservoir.
And may I just reiterate one point, Mr. Chairman, after hearing Drew's comments? Again, this all drains back. This is elevation 38, that's 32. I believe the elevation of the stormwater feature is 30. Again, we're draining back from that direction here. The only propensity for water to drain in that direction from this setup would be literally from this point down, and we've protected that portion of the buffer. The entire roof runoff is collected in the infiltration trench, which does have a couple of overflow pipes, which then connect into the rest of the stormwater system that drains through the porous pavement. And again, it doesn't appear to me that water directly just runs through this wetland and over. There is a slight swale or diversion ditch which runs down this side of the waterworks pond. In other words, the deck of the road is slightly higher than that adjacent shoulder. But in any event, I understand Drew's position, and I just wanted to point those out again and just re-clarify that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that dish running alongside the road, that was my first impression too, but there's a point at the base of that slope where that ditch disappears.
Due to the kind of bow in the hillside.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
It continues, I want to say there's 100 or so feet of where the drainage just doesn't exist.
Right.
And then the water flows backwards towards the range, and then from the forward edge of it, it drains forward towards the road. So there is a spot where it wouldn't be capturing. But
Right.
what I'd be curious about too is during construction, what would be the limit of disturbance?
The limit of disturbance is essentially what you see here in the darker arced line, which is essentially the proposed limit of tree clearing.
Yeah,
So it runs right
Yeah.
along through here.
yeah, the one by the building's the most important, I think. So they wouldn't have to go beyond that point?
No,
That hillside would be undisturbed then?
correct. Yep, everything from, like I say, from the tree line toward the Waterworks Road would be undisturbed. And again, with this, we were able to, protect and preserve just over half of the linear distance of that wetland pocket setback.
Any other comments?
Well, I think one of the questions with this proposal also is that it's still over 10% impermeability. It's at 23% impermeable surfaces.
But you need to bear in mind the fact that over half of that is the actual existing GTE road. This entire parcel, here is the property boundary, which runs off page here, and then down to this point. The only impervious, that we're proposing at this point is obviously the building roof. And then these entrances off of GTE Road, one until you get to the pervious pavement, that one, and then again until you get to the pervious pavement on this side. So that is an accurate report on the proposed total impervious area within the shoreline. However, roughly half of that is existing.
Is there any plans to put a loading dock back there?
A loading dock, not that I'm aware, no.
Okay.
There is one proposed garage-type overhead door off the side of the GTE road, and then there would be another in the rear of the building, Mr. Chairman, where that small driveway comes in.
Okay, because that would be the logical spot for a loading dock.
But no docks proposed. I don't think, and Tim, obviously, I always step on myself when I'm trying to explain the way this is all going to work, but yeah, there's not going to be big trucks coming in here unloading masses of auto parts.
Well, it's a lot of square footage to fill up.
Without question, without question. And it probably will be underutilized for a lot of years.
You're not planning on doing any auto servicing in that area?
Negative, nope. It's just planned for storage for dry auto parts, so nothing in there is going to have oil, grease, et cetera, et cetera. Not going to be used, it's all going to be for new parts that get used on the existing, at the existing service center in the Foss existing building.
Not right now.
Okay.
I know I'm getting closer and closer to my monitor because this font's small, but I can zoom, huh?
I am a little bit still concerned about the permanent elimination of the wetlands and the wetlands buffer. That's about 40,000 square feet on this site. Is that right?
40,000 square feet of wetland buffer?
Of wetlands and wetland buffer?
Oh, inclusive of the buffers. That is close, yes. Yep, that's about correct. But perhaps I could ask Brendan to come up and discuss the particular wetlands that are going to be impacted, because I think that bears conversation.
Yeah, so Brendan Quigley, Kristen introduced me, but I'm a wetland scientist with the Cove Environmental. I did prepare some of the materials for the original application. I wasn't able to be at the first meeting, but all that information remains relevant. And, a summary of that is basically there are a number of features which on this particular plan are shown in orange. These are the impact areas in orange. These are largely...
Can you bring the mic with you? Sorry, Brendan.
Sure. These are largely, this one is basically a swale that seems to me to have been created along with the GTE road. Little bit less clear whether this is entirely man-made in what is now the back of the field. But similarly, it's clearly an area that's sort of induced wetlands conditions, as well as this tiny, tiny little pocket, which is just a small hole in the field. The natural wetlands, obviously, up here north of the project, the small pocket that's been the subject of some of the discussions relative to that buffer impact. We also have a man-made swale running down from down the side of the GT road. So, largely these are not super valuable wetlands. In the context of water quality, they do, of course, have value, and that's an important aspect of important consideration. So, the way I sort of balance that in my thinking is through the stormwater controls that are being proposed here, from even our initial discussions with the commission at a conceptual phase. We understood that to be the primary concern. And I think with these latest round of revisions, I think the team has done a good job at addressing that. I will just add, can I flip this around?
Yeah, that's shoreline on the backside.
So, as Christian had mentioned in his review of the summary of all this, everything's been reduced. A couple of important things. The grading on the outside of the project, we have two different colors here. That's because in the ordinance, there is a 150-foot surface alteration buffer. Outside of that, of course, the extent of the district is 300 feet. We've characterized this grading as permanent because it's in that surface alteration. So it is an alteration. We are grading it, and it will necessarily be an impact under that section. This is essentially the same thing. Grading, which is an outsider project, which is going to be allowed to vegetate naturally. And we discussed some various native species seed mixes that can be sowed on this entire slope, including what we've called temporary and permanent. So although we have this disturbance, this will eventually be essentially restored, although we'll have it'll be a graded slope. And everything outside of that, of course, is not going to be disturbed at all. So I just wanted to get that explanation in between the two different areas. Even though one says temporary, this entire slope, pink and orange, will be allowed to grow naturally following the completion of the project.
So that building is in the entire building is in the permanent wetland buffer or the permanent wetland impact? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, that's one way to think of it. The other way to think of it is, and I haven't always gotten a lot of traction in saying this, but we're impacting the entire wetland. So to sort of discuss the impacts to the functions and values relative to the buffer doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. However, you are correct. The building is in the wetland buffer. It's also in the wetland. So that's that's sort of how you view these things from what perspective. But it does differ. In my opinion, it differs if we're putting this building next to the buffer, of another wetland, that we were altering that buffer. But this is completely going away. So it's a wetland impact.
Dave? I'm not voting. Oh, thank you. I'm not voting tonight, and I'm also very old school. But to me, putting a 20,000 square foot building right in the middle of a buffer says, why did we have a buffer? And then I've just seen this map. I don't know if everybody else has. You sent it out just tonight, is that right?
Yeah, Dave asked me to send, Dave Short asked me to, he asked me about how the lot became in the first place. And so I sent out the meeting link for the 2022 subdivision, which includes a map that you're referring to.
When you look at it, there's a very small part in the beginning that's yellow, where you could park cars or
Buildable, yeah.
buildable. You could also put cars there if you want.
Yeah, when that subdivision was approved, there was two buildable areas, I believe, both very small.
Yeah, they're there.
And none of this falls within
What?
None of this even touches what they represented as the buildable areas.
Well, I guess I'm just curious why we put a building right in the middle of the buffer. So why we have the buffer there.
Yeah.
But then, all of those who are voting decide that.
I just forget the numbers from last time. That building, that hasn't been reduced, correct? Or it has been reduced?
No, it
I
has
just-
been.
sorry,
Yes,
if-
it was,
Down to
22.
it was
Yeah.
22,500 square feet, and now it's 20.
I think
Okay.
it's 90 feet deep and 225-foot frontage. I think.
I'm sorry, Christian, if I missed this again. Can you just say the impacts too? So we reduced the impacts from yada yada in the 150.
You have the other one?
I was just looking for it and I couldn't find it.
So for the wetland impacts, wetland impacts have been reduced by 549 square feet, and that is mostly this area here, which, the whole thing extended further out this way. So that's where that reduction has occurred. Overall, permanent wetland buffer impacts have been reduced by over 9,700 square feet, and that would be all this associated buffer as well as this area here.
I'm starting to remember this now. Yeah.
The temporary wetland buffer on this has remained the same, I believe. That's just related to the installation of
That's well, yeah.
stormwater. The shoreland numbers are as follows. So the building itself reduced by 2,500 square feet, blue on this plan. The permanent shoreland impact, so that would be the pavement, has been reduced by 7,585 square feet. And I believe that most of that, again, has come from this edge, again, away from the resource area. And then the permanent shoreland impact in the 150-foot surface alteration, again, this goes back to what I was saying, that there is a setback for grading, essentially. And that's the orange, and that's been pulled back by 5,484 square feet. And again, all this is occurring on this edge here. The pink is almost a wash, 46 additional square feet of temporary, but some of that's because there was some shifting of some of the between the green and the pink. That's largely the same, basically outside the 150 here. And then a small area here. And of course, this is, the 300-foot shoreline goes pretty much over the entire project. So there's the associated with the installation of the outfall there. And I'm glad I wrote those down. I thought someone might ask.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. I forgot even just a month ago.
The other thing that might be helpful, I believe everyone took a site walk out there. Okay. This wetland here, this is all, just so to remind everyone, this is not in the woods. This is right next to the road, essentially a grass swale. And then there's a slope up to the pine trees in the forested area. In my original reports, I tried to identify what was most clearly man-made wetlands, which are excluded from the protection district, and that included, this swale. I wasn't able to necessarily do that for these two because it's less, just less clear. But they are essentially the same type of area. It's receiving stormwater from the road and transmitting it downhill. It's mowed. Again, I'm not I'm not arguing that it has no water quality value. In fact, the engineers create these sort of areas all the time for that express purpose. And it's something that can be addressed elsewhere in the design.
Yeah, thank you. If it's my understanding, I don't want to speak for everybody. I'm less concerned about the actual wetland impacts. I think we went over that well last time and during the site walk. They seem to be low functioning, at least some of those in the field, even that little hole in the middle there. More concerned about just the sheer impact of that shoreland buffer zone. Really just echoing everybody else's in that building, 2,000 square feet out of 22,000. I'm not sure if that's significant enough for me for a true change of this application for a revision that doesn't reduce it entirely. I appreciate getting out of the 150. That's definitely helpful, and I think we're on the right page here. But I think I'd like to see a more minimizing approach to that actual building.
I have a question. Because of the revised size of the building, will you still be topping that hill 6 feet?
Yeah, the revision to the size of the building doesn't change our proposed
Okay.
elevations. That's
Okay.
correct.
Are we the first stop? Mike, has any state permitting started on this project
No,
yet?
because we
No?
wanted to make sure we,
Yeah, no,
secured the local approvals and any revisions that may have to take place.
I appreciate that.
For that, before we went through state permitting. But, I mean, we're teed up to do so
Mm-hmm.
should we get approvals.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Anybody else?
Trevor's been quiet.
Yeah.
I have been quiet.
It's okay.
Yeah, I agree with your take on that, Connor. The wetland, like you mentioned, is. I like how you put it. The fact that we're basically filling in that entire wetland, so the buffer is almost moot point.
Yeah.
So those numbers are whatever, and that wetland, like mentioned, is has quality through some of the water quality functions it provides, but it's not entirely the point here. The shoreline protection is really, I think, top of mind just because of where this sits and the quality of the water source that it's protecting. And it's tough. I agree with Drew's email here that the building is just like what just sticks out like a sore thumb to me. And like minimization, I think is great, and I would absolutely commend the team on what they've done, pulling out of the buffers through a minimization design. This is just a really hard plot of land because of where it sits and what it sits next to. And there's just no amount of feasible minimization that will pull it out of these sensitive reaches that we're, putting ordinances in place to protect. So I feel it's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with this one for me in my head, but just wanted to get my opinions out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the building is the thing. It's just, when you stand up on that hill and you see, visually what's going to happen in a rainstorm, and you're going to, you just see where it's going. I realize you've got all these instruments to filter and trenches, et cetera. It's just, I can't do it. In my mind, sorry.
Anybody else?
would you, like on page 3, it'll say you can move forward based on, the parking lot, we accept the parking lot, but we don't accept
I don't,
the building.
I don't think we're ready to do that, to accept. I think we'd have to see the whole plan again. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to do a motion?
Yep, do we have a motion?
Oh, you want me to do a motion?
I know, I was looking for the paper, but I don't have it in front of me.
So were you suggesting the wetland application separate from the shoreline application, or were you?
Yeah. I mean, you could do that, right, because you could say we support this, we don't support. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it would be helpful, but,
Well, I still have questions about the wetland part of it, too.
oh, the wetland. part.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would support the parking lot and not the building if I had, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just the building is just, if you stand up there, it says it all.
So we'll go over the wetland CUP first? Sorry, I just cut
Sure.
you off. I think you were mid-motion
Yes,
there, too.
yeah, go
So-
for it, go for it.
Or maybe the shoreline. I mean, I feel that, I get the feeling that in our minds, the wetlands themselves and those impacts aren't really what's on the table here. It's more the shoreland impacts. But because of that, the wetland impacts then become significant, right? Because there would be no reason to approve the wetland conditional use permit of the filling of a wetland that we would want kept in place anyway because of the shoreline, if that makes sense.
That did make sense.
Oh, did it? All right, great.
We'd be recommending, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I
Not
still have
approving or denying.
questions about the
Which
wetlands,
is
too.
totally valid, yeah.
Yep.
Did you have something else?
No, I'm all set. If you want a motion.
So I guess the motion is that for the shoreline CUP, we have reviewed the shoreline conditional use permit application and are not in support of the application due to, I think the fact that it's not a minor encroachment, that the building and most of the parking lot is within the 300 square feet project. Also, the fact that it still has impervious surfaces of over 10%, and we're worried about stormwater impact. Did I capture that correctly or not? Were there other things?
I think you hit the highlights. Yeah.
Is that right?
We got a second?
People can change that if they want to.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would take out was that 10%
Okay.
based on Christian's answer of that GT
Okay.
road, but
Yeah, the existing project just with the roads. on
Yeah.
10%, so that's what we're fighting with.
yep. Otherwise, I'll second that.
So Valerie, you would need to.
Oh, you
modify
need to
your
re-say
motion,
it.
Or you guys need to vote and kill it and then start over.
Oh, I apologize. You're going to have to restate that.
Okay.
Or just what you said before, with the exception of the impervious surface. Just should come from you because
So
you
the thing
moved
to do
it.
is pull back your motion, pull
Yeah.
back your second, and take another. one.
Okay, I pull back the motion.
Pull back the second.
All right. I motion that we have reviewed the shoreline conditional use permit application and are not in support of the application because of the fact that it's not a minor encroachment, that the building and that most of the building and parking lot are within the 300-foot shoreland area, which protects Waterworks Pond, and that we are concerned about impacts of stormwater runoff. Is that right? Does that sound like it captured it? Okay.
Kristen, can you read that back?
Valerie motioned that they're not in support of the shoreline conditional use permit application because the project is not a minor encroachment in the district. Most of the building and lot is within the 300-foot shoreline buffer for the protection of Waterworks Pond and concerns over stormwater impact.
Is that it?
That's what I said.
Okay.
Yep. I'll second that again, yeah.
Any further discussion? Seeing as how there is none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Motion passes.
Now we have the wetland.
Somebody else do the wetland.
You did such a good job. Yeah, I wasn't going to add any as noted. So I motion that we reviewed the wetland conditional use permit application and are not in support of the application.
Second.
Do we need reasons?
I think.
Do we need reasons?
reasons.
We do? All right.
would be helpful
Okay.
to have
Yeah, that's
reasons.
fine.
Noted as well.
Right, I can't just, no, God. All right, I'll try again. So we have reviewed the wetland conditional use permit application and are not in support of the application due to the permanent elimination of approximately 5,000 square feet of wetland impact. Do we need?
Can I add a little bit to that? Or not?
So you can motion, get a second if you want further discussion. And then if you choose to eliminate that, you can rescind the motion. If you feel there needs to be more
I think it's
discussion
fine.
about his
Sorry,
motion.
I think it's fine.
No. We can add. You just need to second it, or I can rescind it and you can do it.
We'll have a whole back and forth here.
And yeah. That's okay. Up to you.
Well, I think we're asking for an alternate design.
So I will rescind my motion.
And I will, what will I do?
Motion again. but with the full note.
All right, so you want me to do it? Sorry about that. We have reviewed the wetland conditional use permit application and are not in support of the application because we are asking for an alternate design to this site, and also that this one takes out 5,000 square feet of wetlands and 35,000 square feet of wetlands buffer.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Jen, move it.
And there's none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you for your time, folks.
Thank you.
I will say, so this is scheduled to go before the planning board. Christian, can you confirm, is it the 22nd?
22nd it is.
22nd of August. It was extremely helpful for the planning board to hear from a Conservation Commission member last time. I would request or highly recommend that you choose to send a representative there. It's helpful to be able to, for the planning board to hear, hear kind of the reasoning behind it in a way that you can't quite capture in a memo.
we'll make sure that there's somebody there.
When is that
Okay.
meeting? Is that 7?
7 o'clock on the 22nd,
Which is a week from Thursday?
3rd, yep.
Yeah, I can attend.
Thank you, Connor.
You're welcome, Dave.
You're going to go?
Yeah.
All right. Next, major impact standard dredge and fill application has been withdrawn for the time being. So we can go on to.
Can I
committee-
actually address that briefly?
sure. Oh, that's right.
Just
You
so
gotta have
that
a
we
letter.
have information for the record.
Yep.
So we had a site walk scheduled for the application at 146 Portsmouth Ave. An hour prior to the site walk, I had an email from the applicant requesting a deferment to defer any, asking to defer the site walk to a future meeting. Because this is a wetland application, the clock has started with the state. And unless the applicant themselves withdraws the application, the state is still under pressure to make a decision on the permit. So I would recommend that you discuss some of the concerns that you might have, and then we issue a letter to the state pointing out what those concerns are and requesting deferment until which time the applicant can present before the board. And that way, there's no risk of the state being forced to act on a timeline without consideration of what those concerns are. Now, there's no one here to present the application here. There's no one here to clarify questions. So the application sits the way it is.
So the drawing of the shoreline boundary, can you
Yes.
talk about that?
Sure. So as you know, they did not file a conditional use permit application. They chose to submit the state permit first. That's a fairly atypical process. It's not unusual for applications to get out of sync, but much like the prior application, they wanted to get local concerns addressed, and that sometimes results in modifications of a project plan. In this case, they submitted to the state. The state is not responsible for shoreline buffers, for Exeter shoreline buffers. The state cannot defer their decision for a local decision. Having said that, the applicant has been informed that we believe how they drew the shoreline district on the plans, and the statement in the application that this project meets the Exeter shoreline district regulations is inaccurate. The reason we believe that is they show the 150-foot shoreline buffer and the 300-foot shoreline buffer, and they intersect. And you can't have that, they're built on each other. So we have met twice now with the applicant. The most recent was this morning, which may have been the cause of anyway. The most recent was this morning. I think that there is clarity now on the applicant's behalf for how our regulations apply to this project. It really hinges on that, whether there's a contiguous wetland there. So our shoreline district is where the river is plus any contiguous wetland, and that's where you start drawing the district. I had shared with them that their wetland scientist identified one single wetland adjacent to Parkman Brook. And so there needs to be, so to me, at a minimum, some part of that wetland is likely considered a contiguous wetland by our regulation standards. And so they should take a look on site.
And they're also talking about taking what is essentially a completely unbuildable site and artificially making it buildable.
So you've been out there?
Oh, yeah.
Walked around?
As much as you can through the thorns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, we're concerned about the Foss project here, and that had a small amount of buildable area, but it was within, at least it had some. This site has none at all. And what it will take to turn that around is massive.
I did raise
Agreed.
a concern with the applicant also, or I did ask the applicant that we inform the applicant, we would need more information, because what they're proposing is a temporary retaining wall, 16 or whatever feet of fill, and that's how they'll compress the
Right.
soil and extract the water. And in that time period, there's no stormwater management proposed, and so I said, it's not clear to me how the proposal meets our regulations, because they had indicated that fill would need to sit in place for 2 to 3 years. And so there's a period of 2 to 3 years where our stormwater regulations wouldn't be met.
Well, I think one of the questions I had is if they're going to be doing automobile service in the shoreland area, which is prohibited, because that building looks like it's on the backside of the proposed project. And additionally, I have questions about if they're going to have underground storage of petroleum.
And I can't answer those questions.
I know you can't,
Yeah.
but those are two of my concerns. Yeah. I mean, Parkman Brook is a protected brook, as is Wheelwright. So it's a important area.
Did they explain why they opted to not go to TRC first and that sort of thing? Nobody asked them the question?
No.
Okay.
I don't have the answer to that.
So I guess our request is that we want local review of it before this, that we think we should have local review of it first.
Keep in mind that the state, or Connor, I don't know if you want to elaborate
Yeah.
as a wetlands scientist, you're far more familiar with the state regs than I am. No pressure there.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's different ways to permit a project. Either you go local first or state first. I think Exeter prefers local first, so then we can get an eye on the project. But it's a feasible way to go state first. For this application, you also don't need to go to the Conservation Commission. That's not required per standard dredge fill, major, minor, or expedited. This project, I think Kristen touched on it as well. The state views their priority resource areas the same as we do with our shoreline. So if there's a wetland that connects, my understanding is that the state's interpretation is that that entire wetland system is now also a priority resource area. So this wetland looks like it's contiguous to Parkman Brook. Anything that Parkman Brook is now also all the way up to the edge of this site. No matter how they parse it out, wetland A, wetland 1A, wetland 1B, wetland 1C, that's all one wetland system in the eyes of the state. So they have, once you get it in, once you submit the application, if it's under an acre, the state has 50 days to review it. If it's over an acre, the state has 75 days to review it. I'm not sure of when they submitted this, but I assume that we won't be able to meet before the state's time is
Yeah,
up.
that's correct. The application was submitted, I think, on the 27th. So when I counted it out, if I counted correctly, it was September 3rd.
Yep. So then,
So,
I guess-
so the state's deadline to respond would be before the Conservation Commission meeting.
yes. So then we would just together vote on it. but to write a letter to the State Wetlands Bureau voicing our opinion. If they take it into consideration and require more information, they'll request more information from the applicant. We'll be CC'd on that whole process as well. So when they respond to the state, they are authorized to include us as well, so we see that response. That's kind of the process if they don't come to us to talk about. So I guess moving forward, we would draft a letter with our concerns. I don't know the voting, how that would go. If we read a letter out loud now,
So my recommendation would be, yeah, to authorize the chair to sign a letter that reflects your position. I would still, in that letter, leave the door open for them to come back, because the applicant did say, that they do want to return. And so, if there's reasons that you feel that the application has errors, or that, something wasn't adequately addressed, what those concerns were, I would mention them in that letter, and then and authorize Dave to sign that letter and submit it to the state.
okay.
Are you the author?
I guess so, huh? I can draft a letter, but the main themes I think I'm hearing are, I would like to see the priority resource area question addressed. They clicked off, or they said they won't be impacting PRAs. It's my understanding the state interprets the PRA, as I discussed, that it's all one continuous. So they would be impacting a PRA, in my current understanding. As well as Kristen's, the stormwater, that seemed like that's a large topic. I don't know if now is the space to discuss the shoreland, but they did talk about it in the application.
They did state in the application that it meets Exeter Shoreline Protection
So
District.
then I would say that would be another theme if they stated it in the application. And I think those are my big three. Let me know if I'm missing anything.
Maybe just an interest in meeting with the applicant to
Yeah,
discuss
yes, yep.
those
Yeah.
concerns before action is taken by the state.
Yeah, yeah. An opportunity to meet with the applicant to discuss these concerns or present their proposal.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry.
The priority resource area is connected to the Great Bay watershed, correct?
Yeah,
Can we put that in there?
you sure can.
Yeah.
Yep. So on the map, it's showing as a tier 3 wetland adjacent to a tier 3 stream.
It's assumed,
Or-
but it's
yeah.
good not to assume.
Yep. Yeah. It's also, I don't know where prime rules, but Parkman Brook is a prime wetland.
It is.
Yeah, I haven't been able to I'm sort of like bouncing back and forth between maps here, and I haven't been able to overlay them, but I'd also be interested as to where a transitional marsh migration pathway lands in regards to this project, because, I mean, we have a salt marsh right there, and, like, the current state of that wetland may not be, like, phenomenal, but the point is, if it's fresh now, with a little more sea level rise, it'll get brackish and saltish, and that's where the marsh will move.
I remember that being a large topic
Yeah,
during the mitigation discussion
coming
as
back.
well.
Yeah.
All right. So do we have a motion for this?
So it sounds like you want a motion to allow the chair to sign a
Yes.
letter that addresses those concerns.
Have Connor prepare a letter and I'll sign it.
So moved.
That's my motion.
Yeah, that's fine.
Who seconded it? Nick?
Oh, is that your motion?
Oh, did you make it?
Yeah, I said so moved.
Oh, okay.
That was his official motion.
All right. So Trevor made the motion.
I'll second it for you, Dave.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Can you read the motion back, please?
Authorize the chair to sign a letter that reflects the concerns mentioned by Connor that includes the presence of a priority resource area as a wetland adjacent to a Tier 3 stream, a prime wetland, the connection to Great Bay. I thought you may have said a third one. That concerns over stormwater during the settling, and the statement that the application meets the Exeter Shoreline Protection District when it currently does not.
And
And that they are looking for an opportunity to, that we would like an opportunity to discuss these questions with the applicant before the state makes a decision.
Thank you.
All right.
Do you want to include?
Yeah, and a potential marsh migration pathway.
Thank
The
you.
transitional.
Yep.
Yep. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Now, committee reports. The research request approval, it's a Fisher study in the Oaklands in Little River.
Conservation area?
Conservation area, yes. There was an email from a William Chrisman at UNH, I believe, correct? Do you have that, or?
I don't have the email, but I can generally describe
just
what
summarize it. Yeah.
what the request was. A UNH researcher requested access to the REDC parcel, which is within the Little River Conservation Area, and the Oakland's Town Forest to conduct a fisher study. It involves live trapping fishers and radio collaring them, and the goal is to learn a little bit more about, there's concern about fisher populations. And the goal is to learn a little bit more about their habitat use in those areas. We're not looking tonight for endorsement from the commission. Dave made a decision that given they were intending to start in August for the research, and given the low impact, because it's really just similar to someone walking on the trails, the low impact, Dave felt it was permissible to give them permission. That is contingent on a few items, and that was basically that there's no motorized vehicle use in the town forest, and I may be able to pull up the other conditions.
They were going to be checking the traps each day.
That's right. Sorry, it's a big packet. Bear with me, I'm sorry. So it was foot traffic only. Vehicles would not be able to be used to access sites and will be parked in approved parking locations. They will adhere to leave no trace ethics. All equipment and materials will be fully removed, concluding field efforts. Traps and cameras will be labeled to indicate they're for research purposes. They'll have 2 ID tags on them. They'll also have their contact info engraved so the concern was if the public came upon them, what would their reaction be? They understand the town of Exeter assumes no liability for this work, and they will provide a copy of the report, but since it's a multi-year study, it may be a while before they have one available. Okay.
Okay, on mowing. Dave O'Hearn's estimate for mowing the Irvine, Hayes, Morissette, and Perry White's field Perry White's Meadow properties this year is $1,825. As a reminder, we manage these properties for pollinator and grassland habitat, so a single late season mowing is required to keep the woody growth in check. Like to authorize vote to authorize the expenditure of this $1,825 from the roadside mowing line item.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Rains. Kristen was able to find a contractor, LGT Restoration, who will be able to complete the exterior clapboard trim repair, replacement and painting on the west and north sides for $18,200, which is dramatically less than previously expected. This will be completely covered by the Moose Plate grant we received. This leaves the fire detection system and interior staircase. She had submitted an L-chip grant application, but opted to withdraw it because we would not be able to expend the Moose Plate funds, which was identified as a partial match, until after the L-chip grant was approved in December. She was concerned the contractor would not be available then, or that rates would change, and felt we were better served to seek funding through the town for the remaining tasks. And I guess you did get a quote for fire suppression or fire detection?
Yeah, and we can talk about that in budget, but because the remaining repairs do not hit the threshold for CIP, I did in my draft budget, which we'll talk about because it's technically your budget, include a line item to cover the fire detection system. I left out the interior stairwell just because I know it's going to be a hefty year. And of the two, that seemed less essential. I feel like we could continue to use the barn, gain back, that full access again, rather to have continual construction, and defer the interior stair to another time. At this point, the downstairs isn't ready for the public to use or see anyway, so I feel like let's get events on out there again.
Let's protect what's already been done.
Right, so I did include a line item request for that in the Concom's budget, and so hopefully you'll endorse that later tonight.
Okay. Anything else on rains?
No, I'm really excited, it was dramatically lower, the original quote was something like 56,000, so. So it's a dramatic difference. I'm really hopeful that we end up with a great product. It's the first time we've worked with them. It's an individual, Dave, you know them. You're familiar with one of the Les Stan.
The owner.
Owner.
Yeah.
And so there has been a lot of interaction between Stephen and this contractor. It seems like there's good rapport there. So I'm hopeful for a good product.
Did they already get started on the north side? I thought I saw some clapboard work today.
Yeah, they put some staging, and it looked like maybe they were preparing to do some clapboard
I saw them up there.
Yeah.
Well, and the roofing,
Awesome.
the roofing company was there today or yesterday, doing the ridge too, I think.
That was complete. That's complete.
Well, I saw a truck there with a roofing sign on the side of it.
So LGT Restoration's sister company is Top Roofing. You might see their signs all around, so maybe
is
there's
that
a sharing. I think
okay.
it's the same contractor.
All right, so that was his guys that I saw there,
Yeah.
not the roofing company.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good work. It's exciting.
All right. Kristen, you want to go over the proposed budget?
Yes. Before we do, I did want to raise the trail, Sig Sauer, an employee at Sig Sauer reached out with a request for volunteer project for 10 people. They seemed field capable. Toby, I guess they must have reached out with Toby as well because he was aware of the inquiry. And he said there is some bridge work that's needed in the town forest. I don't have a budget line item for that, but I just wanted to find out, does anyone else have other projects? Are you supportive of going with the concept of doing some bridge work, or is there something altogether different that you'd be interested in leading or offering to them as a project? Toby did say he would be willing to help coordinate that.
There's definitely some bridges that could use some repair, and they did some work last year that was pretty good. It was well done.
Yeah, did a good job.
Great.
So,
Yeah, I'm always supportive of bridge work and the drills.
Great.
so maybe Kyle, you want to talk with Toby and
Sure.
coordinate what bridges, and if you want me involved, but if you don't.
Oh, and I assume Toby has their contact info, and
Yep.
great.
All right.
And one other item under the Tri-Town outreach events, the rec planner for Brentwood reached out. Every year they host a kayak event. They're interested in pulling off a Tri-Town kayak event, meaning 3 towns would host their own kayaking event in the Exeter River. The challenge is we have so many snags in the Exeter River that I'm not sure that you could really viably kayak it. But we could
Kayak
host
it
something
one
in the
at a time.
Squamscott River. Anyway, I told him I would bring that concept to you. They had 2 potential dates that they wanted both, everyone to do it on the same date, and that was September 21st or September 28th. So I told him I would bring that forward as a,
Where
to
are
see
they,
if-
are they going to kayak where the dam?
yeah, so they're putting in Brentwood, they're putting in at Pickpocket and going upstream, I believe. So they were just wanting to know, does Exeter want to host one on the same day? So is there someone in the town interested in doing that?
I think it would have to be the Squamscott, because the Exeter River's got some massive
Right.
trees across it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'd have, it's tidal driven, so
Yeah.
you'd have to coordinate it. Yeah, so a couple hours either side of time.
I'm feeling no?
Yeah.
I'm not a
I think
kayaker,
it's
so I.
gonna
I
hard to
think-
coordinate
Yeah,
if
me either.
one's in a tidal driven river, and another one's not.
Okay.
Unless they pick a date, then you can work around, look at the tides, I guess.
Yeah, so they were open to either September 21st or September 28th.
All-
And what was the third town?
That's a good question. I was really afraid someone was going to ask me that. I don't know. I would
Raymond?
assume Raymond, but I didn't ask, because I think that's the next town up in the river.
So if you're doing, I'm just looking at tide charts. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how
At
far.
midnight.
Midnight?
Yeah, right. Yeah, pretty close. I mean, I don't know what our difference is from the Squamscott tide gauge.
About 2 hours.
It's 2 hours. All right. Yeah.
No
So
more than
like
two, yeah.
the 21st high tide would be like 6 o'clock ish, 6:30.
AM. I'm still sleeping.
Yeah, AM and PM, and then 28th would be like
6 p.m.
1 o'clock
That's not bad.
ish. So that's better. I can't do the 28th, so I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, I think, can I suggest that we thank them for
Yeah, I was
thinking of
gonna ask.
including us?
Yeah.
Given the tidal nature of the river that is navigable in Exeter. It's a little tough to coordinate, but we appreciate their trying to include us. That would be my response,
Yep.
Be happy to share that.
if I can speak for the commission.
Of course you can.
So they're gonna go from the Pickpocket Dam upriver.
I believe so, and then they tend to have a barbecue there as well. Yeah.
So that property is in Exeter,
Yes.
right?
To a point, right?
The land is in Exeter. The water is question.
Yeah.
So they're envisioning like 3 separate events all on the same day?
Yeah.
Would it maybe make more sense just to have one event
Yeah.
for all the towns in one location that
Yeah.
everybody does together?
Yeah, so we could offer to publicize there.
That's what I thought initially what you were going to say was tri-town, 3 towns were coming to one spot.
Nope.
We could, okay.
All right, well, let's go with Dan's recommendation then and thank them and wish them good luck and all that. Any other committee reports before we go on to do the budget? Kristen?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all
Yes,
yours.
we're at the budget. So, so I did submit a level-funded budget request with the exception of including oh, sorry, I'm looking at the treasurer's report. That's why it's not making sense. Under contract services, I've bumped that, normally we have $1,000 in there. I bumped that to $13,515. Jeff Beck from Public Works, who's our facilities manager, got a quote for a fire detection system, so it includes installation of the system, as well as 1-year contract for the communication that's required to send the signal to the fire department or to 911. So that additional expense would be $700 every year. So after the system is installed, future years, that could be covered under your existing contract services $1,000 budget. So at this stage, we put together a draft budget. If you are supportive with how I've done this, that would be presented to the town manager next week, I believe. And then it goes on to the budget committee, ultimately the select board and the town voters. If you are supportive of that, it could be helpful down the road to have some sort of public support either at town meeting or through the budget process, if you feel you really want to advocate for that addition.
Well, I think it'd be kind of foolish to put all this work into the restoration and not protect a large, dry wooden structure.
Indeed.
So,
As a select board member, I'm happy to advocate for that fire detection system being installed and for the annual contract fee. So I would urge you all to join me.
So what do you need from us, Kristen?
I think it would be helpful to vote to put this forward as the Conservation Commission's budget for this year.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
We're paying $18.25 for mowing right here.
Yes.
Do we have enough in there?
Yes, 1825 is what you're right, I didn't level fund it. I updated the mowing budget to reflect the new amount from David.
Are we also removing the land administration?
Yeah, so that was consolidated in a private. Where did we put that? No. No, that should be 2050, thank you. It was community services that we consolidated into that. Apologies, thank you for catching that.
I think if you just correct that, the budget otherwise looks great to me.
Perfect.
So do you still want a motion? Should we?
Excuse me, are you going to put any education or training in there? No?
Yeah, that was my question too. Do we not spend that down in 2024?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you guys. I wonder if this is an old version. The intent was to level fund with the exception of roadside mowing and add the additional to contract services.
So that could be the motion, right?
Right.
Conservation Commission approves the budget that level funds with the exception of
Yeah.
increases in roadside mowing and an increase for fire detection and alarm contract.
That would be great. That would be a better motion.
Can we just second that, or do we have to repeat?
So moved.
I'm not making a motion, I'm just suggesting a motion. That's
Does
you
somebody
all.
want to repeat what Dan said as a motion?
How about if we do the motion that we,
I'll repeat it. So the Conservation Commission recommends the budget that is level funded with the exception of increased funding for roadside mowing and increased funding for contract services to alarm and protect the Rains Farm building going forward. For fire detection and suppression.
so the motion is we approve the budget, level funding with an increase for the roadside mowing and an increase for the contract services for the alarm and basically fire protection at Rains Farm. That's the motion.
The only thing is rather than approve, you're recommending.
Recommending, sorry.
Budget, yeah.
Recommending.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Let's see. We have some minutes to approve from the 9th of July. Anybody note any issues with those minutes?
Line 14, it's Dan's name is Dan, not Dave.
Oh,
Missed that. Nice catch.
Looking
I
out
went
for you.
right to the meat.
Should we say, okay, they spell my name with 2 L's every time? No, okay.
oh, it should be 2 L's?
No, it's
No, it's
1.
1 L, yeah,
But
you're
they
right.
always put 2.
It's
I'm used to it.
It's, I see
Similar
it as
to
one.
the-
Oh, Michelle, right there.
Similar to the 2 N's in Connor.
Exactly.
That should be
Yes.
1.
Oh, my goodness. Yep. okay.
That's been since I've been on here. So that's
They will be fixed from
That's
here
why his-
forward.
so that is completely fine.
All right. Have a motion to approve the minutes?
As amended.
What?
As amended.
As amended.
As amended. Those big amendments. Well, I'll make a motion to approve July 9th Conservation Commission minutes. A second? As amended.
Second.
Well, if there's any discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimously. A small adjustment on the Ryder property survey was made, or is in the process of being made. Kristen, maybe you want to?
Sure. So Southeast Land Trust, as you know, is working to take the necessary due diligence for acquiring the Ryder project. This is the Tri-Town Conservation Project, the town of Exeter, town of East Kingston, and town of Kensington. Through that process, part of it involves hiring a surveyor to map and document the boundary. As they were going through that, they actually found a discrepancy in what the boundary is in Kensington. So the second page in your packet shows yellow is what was initially shown, but the reality is the deeds describe it johnning down to Great Brook. The beauty of that change is that means that this project will be protecting all the way down to a much larger portion of Great Brook, which is an important resource in our town. Through that process, though, because there's an additional 7 acres, the property owner had asked for the exclusion area, so that's the area where the easement does not apply, to be expanded to offset those 7 acres. And they thought that was a good negotiation rather than requesting additional funding and starting the request again through all of the towns. Unless there's any concerns or comments or questions I need to bring back to Southeast Land Trust, there's no action on this at this time. As I said, the beauty is ultimately the project protects ecologically more property, and the exclusion area better aligns with the portion of the property that the property owner uses to date.
All makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, 8 Thistle.
So as you remember at the last meeting, a resident spoke at the podium under public comment with concerns over mowing that's happening at 8 Thistle Way. So I did look into it. The planning board did authorize one time a year mowing of that buffer. I went out, it did appear to have recently been mowed, so I submitted a letter to the property owner at 8 Thistle. They replied and obviously were kind of surprised and concerned. I included the letter in your packet. But I don't have the ability to waive our regulations, and I can't change what the planning board authorized. So the best that I could do was offer to meet the property owner on site and reestablish the buffer discs that somehow disappeared. I know that they do still remain on the adjacent property. I don't know the outcome, but I've not heard back from him.
Okay, and then the DOT wanted to do vegetation control on some of the bridges.
So the last thing is Teresa Walker with Exeter Squamscott Local Advisory shared an application from the State Department of Transportation for herbicide application at bridges that the DOT controls. It's spot treatment using foliar application. The products that they were proposing was Rodeo, Roundup Pro Concentrate, Roundup Custom for aquatic and terrestrial uses, and Milestone. All of these will be applied in accordance with the requirements and the application standards for herbicides. Don wanted to be sure, Don did express his concern with the use of any herbicides adjacent to water bodies. And so this is before you, DOT is looking for public comment or community comment before the 18th, I think was the deadline. I will say, August 16th, excuse me. I will say I don't know if I included I think I included the entire packet, the entire submission in your packet, so you saw the different correspondence. The state did come back with, the standards and restrictions that they adhere to when they're applying the pesticides, and that they apply them in accordance to the MSDS safety sheets and the state standards. So that's just here for you to offer your comments should you have any.
Does anybody have any comments?
They're going to spray around bridges?
Yeah, so DOT is responsible for the bridge at, people call it Second Bridge, out by the McDonald property. And then the other one is the Kingston Road Bridge at Kingston Road, where Juniper Road goes
Will it
up.
also be, wouldn't they be for the bridge going up, exit 10?
That's not, I don't think they identified that.
85?
No, I don't think they identified that.
That's a state road though, I think, is it? all the way down to the highway department.
I don't know their approach for this, maybe they're just in different cycles, but that bridge was not identified.
And it's for poison ivy.
Poison ivy, knotweed, other invasives.
No comments? Okay. All right, then the last thing is, can you pull that map up of the trail?
Right.
Part of the Oakland Trail System, where it crosses into Newfields, was owned by, there was a piece of property there owned by Bill Connor, right off the end of the cul-de-sac by the Deer Trees parking lot. And the person who bought that from him now has decided to build. And the trail was crossing part of his property, and he would no longer like that to be happening. So as a temporary measure, until a reroute can be figured out, or some solution, if we even decide we need one, the trail at, I don't know how familiar people, that's why I'm waiting for the map to come up, but
I'm sorry, there's something wrong now with how it looks.
but when you're heading north from the power lines, you come to this trail on your left called PBR, and that's part of where the red trail is part of that that trail also. So the main hiking trail would still be continued to be used. What we need to do is block off the trail that extends beyond that to his property. And then also at the other end of PBR, which is still the red trail, we need to block it off going downhill to his property.
Is this reflecting where you want it? And I'm gonna have you do this, so whatever they're.
I was so
I
confused.
thought we had ghosts.
I just was okay with that.
So if you could use this pointer, then it will get picked up. Oh, okay. Here's the power line.
No, it's up from the hand print there.
So here's the deer trees, right? Is this right?
Okay.
Yeah, the hand's right, you just touched it, I think.
Okay. Where we're coming in is, this is the road trail right here. It hangs a left here. The part that has to be closed is this right here, because this part crosses over this landowner's property right here.
Oh, wow.
So we need to put signage up here, and then we need to put signage up here, or possibly down here, and that'll be up to somebody in Newfields to do. But, passage across here, at least for the moment, can no longer happen. So I just wanted to alert people to that down here where this trail is in the Exeter portion, is going to be a sign directing people on the way. Because he's going to start construction sometime around the end of August, beginning of September. And he met with Toby and Jeff from the Newfields Conservation. I was out of town, so I couldn't meet with them. But it's just a courtesy to that landowner. And it's not really going to disrupt things too much.
Dave, what about that trail that moves east and west?
This here?
To the right, yeah, that along there.
That's just coming up from the neighborhood down there. It's not really used all that much.
Okay.
How many feet are we blocking? I mean, are we blocking off? How long is a trail? What portion are we blocking off?
Well, see, part of what,
Looks like a lot.
where are we?
I know. You have to stand further back because the sensor is behind
Look
you.
right into
200
the-
meter scale at the bottom.
Okay. See, now since we're crossing out of Exeter here,
Yeah,
it's not showing the lot lines or anything like that. What we're really concerned about really is just this section. But in the interest of people not getting like all the way down here and then finding a sign saying turn around and go back, you better catch them right here at the intersection and then have them continue on. This is actually the red trail right here. It's also called PBR. And then the trail would still be able to go down to the Deer Trees parking lot, but it just would not be able to cross this section any longer. Okay? So, hope nobody minds a sign there.
So Dave, I can work with you to create some sort of something that we put on the website as well, and we can try to push it out
Yeah.
on, through the Facebook page.
All right. Any other business?
I have one item, I know it's getting late, but I have one item I just wanted to get a feeler from the commission on. So right now, and you don't have to take action tonight, we can discuss it again in the future, but right now, we have a Conservation Commission Facebook page, and which is great, and I use it a fair amount to share Conservation Commission items, but there are a lot of other items that I'm putting on there that don't necessarily feel Conservation Commission specific, feel more sustainability specific or energy committee specific. And so I guess I just wanted to get a sense for you what you think about the concept of renaming that to either the Planning and Sustainability Facebook, Town of Exeter Planning and Sustainability, or something to broaden the name of the page. I would still be posting the same stuff, but it would almost be more relevant to the name would be more relevant to the topics that I'm
yeah,
posting.
more relevant to the scope, like putting in there.
You wouldn't have two Facebook pages?
No, I mean, there's definitely discouragement. I think at this point, there was discouragement of having too many town pages,
Yeah.
and so increasing that, I think, would be discouraged. I just think that there's a fair amount of people that do follow that for sort of natural resource-related topics, but sometimes they feel funny sharing some stuff like, I don't know, under the Conservation Commission page.
Yeah, I'm fully supportive of that change. I think that would be a good move, not only because it opens the umbrella to related but not directly related items, but it also takes that pressure off of like something that's like really close but like literally not a conservation item can be discussed there and doesn't like come back and reflect on this commission directly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yep.
So you're going to call it the natural resource page, or what are you thinking?
I was thinking planning and sustainability. I've not talked to Dave Sharples about this at all, but we do have department-related projects that go on all the time that, I think we could highlight through that. I don't know. I'm just sort of, I guess, the gelling around the concept at this stage, but something along the lines of planning and sustainability or Exeter, I don't know.
The only thing I feel, putting the word planning in there, people will think it's the planning department.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like less is more on that
Yeah.
type of name.
Yeah. I mean,
Just an opinion.
It used to be that there was Conservation Commission member that helped maintain the page, so it really was kind of a the reality is it's the conservation and sustainability planners page. You know what I mean? So I don't know. All right. Well, I'll think more about a name and maybe propose something for the next meeting.
That's a good idea.
Even natural resources committees.
Yeah.
Yeah, broaden the umbrella.
Okay. Thank you.
There's nothing else. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I make a motion to adjourn. He
second.
seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That's
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.